Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing good. So as a part of our Liquibase tutorial series, in last lecture we learned about Liquibase preconditions, right? Now in this lecture we will learn about Liquibase triggers. Okay, so we will create trigger using Liquibase on a Postgres database. So without wasting time, let's start. So first I will go in Liquibase documentation page. Okay, so this is the documentation page. So in the change type under entity, if you see, so you will find one option called create trigger, right? So what is create trigger? The create trigger change type creates the trigger in the database, right? And pro is written, right? That means this feature is available in licensed version of Liquibase, right? Let's check the XML example. Okay, so in the XML example, you can follow this syntax to create trigger, right? So what are the things you have to give? You have to give trigger name, right? Table name on which you are creating trigger, scope, schema name, right? Public, replace if exist, right? Create or replace, relative changelog file, right? And database and other options, right? So these are the things you have to give, and using this syntax, if you have a licensed version, you can create trigger using Liquibase on databases, right? Like H2, Oracle, and MySQL, and other database as well. Okay. Now we'll see how we can create Liquibase, how we can create trigger using Liquibase when we don't have a licensed version. Okay. So let's go in our PG admin. Okay, so we are performing all the activity in our employee database. So let me open a query tool in employee database. Okay, so let's check the first database change log. Okay, so which has all the log of our past executions. So let's check that. So let me just hit enter. So we have 20 rows, right? So we have 20 rows so far, right? Now we are going to create trigger using Liquibase. Okay. So we are going to trigger, we'll go in schema. In public schema, we are going to create trigger on table. Okay. So table name is employee, right? So we already have employee table and which has data also, right? Let's check the data. So let me just paste it here and let me just run this query. Okay, so this is the employee database which has 6 rows, right? 6 employees data, which has employee ID as primary key, then department ID, employee name is there, employee role is there, and employee salary is there, right? Now let's create a trigger, okay, which will log all the change in the salary on this employee table, right? If we make any update in terms of salary from this employee table, right? So those change in the salaries should be logged in another table, logging table using a trigger. Okay, so we are going to perform that. Okay, so let me check. So right now we don't have any trigger function or any trigger on this employee table, right? Okay, so let's start. So let me go into our Postgres Liquibase folder. Okay, so this is our Postgres Liquibase folder, and let's go in src main Java operations changelog release 1.0 1.0, right? So we have one public changelog table release, right? So this file only will use to create trigger. Okay, so this is the file we have, right? So in this file, I have already added the change set. Okay, so the change set is first to create the table. Okay, so our table name is employee salary update. In this table, we are going to log the salary changes from the employee table. Okay, so this new table we have to create employee salary update, right? Which has ID, integer column, then employee ID of employee, right, for which salary has been updated, old salary, right, new salary which has been updated, and when it is updated, update on, right? So that will be timestamp type, right? I have also added an add auto increment tag, right, which will make this ID column as identity column, which will automatically increment, right, as a sequence, right? It will start with 1, right, increment by 1, right? So this ID column will become an entity identity column, right, which will auto increment, right? So I have added an add auto increment tag, right? So we have to create this employee salary update table, right, which has 5 columns, and then making this id column as auto increment, right? And then we have a create trigger change set, right? So we already know in the postgres we create a trigger function, right? And then bind that trigger function to the trigger. Okay, so if you guys not know basics about the triggers, so please visit my postgres tutorial series. Okay, there I have explained in detail about the triggers. Okay, so this is the trigger function. Okay, so trigger function is log employee salary update. So I have kept it in create procedure tag. You can also keep it in SQL tag, right? But this create procedure tag will help you, and C data along with C data tag will help you to keep the XML data as well inside your code, right? So this is our no, this is our trigger function. Log employee salary update is our trigger function, right? I have written all the logic inside that. I will explain it later. Okay, and then I'm creating the trigger. So trigger I have kept in an SQL tag, and in that create trigger. So my trigger name is trigger employee salary update, right? And it is a after trigger. So after update on employee, right? And for each row it's a row type trigger, right? And then execute this procedure log employee salary update, which is this trigger function, right? So this is the trigger function, and here we are creating trigger and binding the trigger function to the trigger, right? So our change set is ready, right? So we can start deploying it using Liquibase. So let me open PowerShell. So this is our Windows PowerShell, right? So let me just enlarge a little bit so that you guys can see clearly. And then we'll run our Liquibase command, right? So first I have to do cd in our changelog folder, right? So this is cd to our changelog folder. Let me hit enter, right? So now we are in changelog folder, right? Now I'm going to run the Liquibase command, right? So Liquibase command is same, in which we have changelog file is master changelog XML, username postgres, password local, URL is employee database, right? Look on local host, right? Driver is there, class path of the driver, right? Context and the log label, info update, right? Let me hit enter. So let's see what it deploys. Okay, so you can see deployment update was successfully, right? Let's check our change sets. Okay, so I think this one create employee salary update table, right? So this change set to create the log table, right? Employee salary update table, right? So this is done successfully, right? Then our create trigger employee salary update, right? So create trigger change set also ran successfully, right? So both the change set ran successfully. Let's check in our object explorer. So let me just go and refresh this employee database. Okay, so in the public schema, you can see under employee table, under trigger tab, there is one trigger created, right? So this is our trigger employee salary update, and this is our trigger function, right? Public log employee salary update, right? Which is linked with this trigger employee salary update, right? And this trigger function will also be visible under separately under trigger function tab, right? So this is the log employee salary update trigger function, right? So our trigger got created, right? So let's see what our trigger is doing. Okay, so this is our trigger code, and let's see our trigger function. So in the trigger function, it's a simple, right? So this is a trigger function which is returning trigger, and there is one print statement in that row label trigger calling, and then I'm checking if new dot employee salary not equals to old dot employee salary, right? If there is any update on the employee table and new employee salary not equals to old employee salary, then insert into this table employee salary update. And what are the things we have to insert? Employee ID, old salary, new salary, and when it was updated, right? So old dot employee ID, old dot employee salary, new dot employee salary, and now we'll put the timestamp when it was updated, right? And then return new, right? So this is the work of our trigger function, right? So our trigger work is to log all the salary changes from this employee table, right? Now uh, let's check this updating any employee salary. Okay, so let me just copy these queries first. So in the employee table, we have 6 rows right now. Let's check the log table, employee salary update, right? So it has no rows right now, right? And let's update the first employee salaries, right? So first employee salary is right now 1 lakh, right? So let's update it to 2 lakh. Okay, so let's update it. Just run the update command. Okay, so you can see the print statement row label trigger calling. This is coming from trigger function, and update one update is done on the employee table, right? Now let's check the employee table first. That salary has been changed to 2 lakh, right? Salary has been changed to 2 lakh for employee ID 1. And now let's check our logging table if our trigger is working good, right? So trigger is now, see, putting an entry in our logging table that employee ID was 1. This was auto increment ID column, right? Starting from 1. Employee ID is 1. Old salary was 1 lakh. New salary is 2 lakh, and it is updated on 17th of November, right? So our trigger is working good, right? So we can do more update, right? Let's change the salary again to 3 lakh, right? Let's change the same employee salary to 3 lakh again, right? So you can see one row is updated, right? Let's check in the log table. So you can see another entry, right? ID number 2 generated, employee ID 1, old salary was 2 lakh, right? Which was updated in the first row, right? So old salary was 2 lakh, now new salary is 3 lakh, right? Updated on this, right? So our trigger is working good, right? So I hope you guys understood, right? How to create trigger using Liquibase, right? How to use this create procedure tab to write the trigger function, and then use the SQL tab to write the trigger logic, right? Create trigger logic, right? So I hope you guys like this lecture. If you guys like this lecture, please subscribe my channel. Thank you guys.